Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Zone Blitz. As always, I'm Vince Miller, joined by my co-host Ashton Overholt. And today we are talking about the spring quarterback battles that we are interested in. There's way more out there probably than we can even talk about in one episode. But yeah, I guess maybe the 10 or so. Maybe there's more. I don't know how many kind of caught your eye as you were going through this list, Ashton.
Yeah, so okay, like I think Michigan has a really interesting one
Yeah.
on their hands. Like between like Cade McNamara, all he did was take him to the playoff. But even then, like McCarthy's getting some time, like
Hmm.
kind of like split, yeah, in the gaps or whatever. Um, Texas is of course going to be interesting because of like Quinn Ewers going there. Like maybe that's not even a competition. Like maybe that's just his job. But like Hudson Card's still there. Like yeah, whatever. Like, yeah, not sure. I think Clemson probably has the biggest one though. For me, Clemson's is fascinating between either DJ or Cade Klubnik.
Hmm.
So I think that's probably the biggest one. But there's actually quite a few. If you go into like some of the SEC West schools, Auburn, Texas A&M, and LSU all
Yeah.
have they kind of all like just kind of played musical chairs a little bit. Yeah, and then like yeah, Bo Nix ends up going. Bo Nix leaves Auburn, goes to Oregon. He might have a little bit of a battle there, like with Ty Thompson. So I think those are kind of the big ones. Like at least at the mains, like the ones that we know about and talk about at like big name schools that will like affect us next year. So there's probably yeah 7 or 8 and that are like big time. I think Florida. That I'm not sure if I mentioned Florida's Anthony Richardson. Jack Miller
Hmm.
transferred to Florida right from Ohio
Yeah.
State, and apparently is having quite a spring so far. So like we just maybe penciled AR-15 in there for yeah, like he's gonna be the starter. Maybe not. Maybe not. We'll see.
Yeah, so those are some of the main ones that I was also thinking of. And we might go through a few more. Just, I kind of have a list here we can talk about. Let's start with Auburn. So maybe we'll get them out of the way. I don't know,
Okay.
but
Yep.
so TJ Finley and Zach Calzada, I think, are the two main names to know. There's also Robbie Ashford, who I know nothing about. Um, but Finley and Calzada are kind of the main ones. Finley played a fair amount last year for Auburn, and Calzada, of course, was playing at A&M. More, yeah, I guess he actually played most of the year last year for A&M last year because Haynes King, the starter there, got hurt. And yeah, I don't know. Like neither one of these quarterbacks really gave us a whole lot to write home about. I would say. Which one do you think wins this job, and what are you kind of looking for if you're Auburn?
So I think Auburn will end up going with Zach Calzada simply because he beat Alabama, and like they're desperate to do that, right? So
Right.
like, hey, maybe we'll just try to catch lightning in a bottle next year too. And like, really, if Calzada beats Alabama again, I mean, just legend for all time. Like, imagine if he
Yeah.
goes two for two against Nick Saban, like. Yeah, okay. He was okay last year. He has a very strong arm. Calzada has a cannon for an arm.
Hmm.
He had a decent year. It was okay, but he was unbelievable against Alabama. Like that night, that one night, home game, like yeah, it was the big time throw after big time throw going down the stretch. I think that's what Auburn's going to try to yeah get some of that magic. I'm not sure. And maybe he's just a better quarterback too. Like maybe he just has a stronger arm
Hmm.
and can settle down and make the right decisions because we know as he has the talent for it. Maybe he can settle down and yeah begin to process things maybe a little quicker.
So, from my read on the situation is that you kind of just describe both of them a little bit.
Well,
Like I
yeah,
think both of these guys sort of have a howitzer for an arm,
yeah.
and they don't quite know when to, maybe throw it 2/3 speed instead of full speed, and maybe how to read the defense. Like I don't know. To me, it almost feels like maybe it's an oversimplification, but it feels like it's two talented arms that whoever figures out how to actually play quarterback first, like wins the job.
I think they're both good, by the way. Like neither one are bad
Sure.
options. Just maybe like we were maybe yeah. Okay. Would you rather have Bo Nix or Zach Calzada? Like you know what I mean? Like if you're having to decide between TJ Finley, Zach Calzada, or Bo Nix, which one do you pick?
Well, the way Bo Nix played last year, I think I'd take him. I just
Yeah.
like I don't know. We've seen a little bit of growth from him. I think that yeah, you're right. Like these aren't bad options if you're Auburn looking to go 8-4. But I think Auburn is probably hoping they have some unrealistic expectations. I think we've talked about that a little bit maybe in the past. Like, yeah, neither one of these guys is going to be the guy that leads them to an 11-1 type of season or whatever. Well, I mean, you never know how someone will develop, but that's not what it's looked like so far from either one of these players.
Can we please talk about LSU?
Yes,
I'm just dying to get to the LSU one.
Let's go to LSU next. So kind of the three main names there. Miles Brennan, who has played a little bit for them in the past, but has had injury issues. Garrett Nussmeier, who's the redshirt freshman who, was highly rated coming into LSU a year ago. And then Jaden Daniels, the transfer from Arizona State. We've talked some about this one, but obviously we've had a little bit of spring practice. Where are your thoughts on this competition right now?
So this one here, like, we didn't even mention Walker Howard, who was at one point was a 5-star, and I think he finished as a high 4-star, but he's also there. So
true freshman,
kind of like
yes.
Right, true freshman. Like, he just got on campus. If he's even there yet, I don't even know. So but Miles Brennan and Jaden Daniels feel like they're the favorites, right? Like, those are the two, the two guys that are really going for it. It's got to be Jaden Daniels. Right? Am I wrong to think that he comes in, he transfers in, Miles Brennan hasn't been healthy, doesn't seem to be able to stay healthy, and Jaden Daniels we feel maybe a little bit more confident in? Mm-hmm. Like, that's maybe kind of where I'm going, and I think he'll win. Like, my prediction, if we have to do predictions, I would go with Jaden Daniels just on the experience that he's had, whereas Brennan's kind of new. Like, Brennan has won the job a couple of times. It feels like he's been pretty good. Well, okay, no, just once. He won the job 2 years ago? Is that right? And
yeah, I believe so.
He's been banged up a lot. I need to double check that. Yeah, so he's been hurt quite a bit. But then I think maybe the dual threat too that Jaden Daniels has would kind of be like, I don't know if you want to say X factor, but like maybe what kind of puts him over the edge. Does Brian Kelly, like, where would Brian Kelly be? Like, where would his mind be at with these quarterbacks?
That's a good question, but you mentioned the dual threat part of this, and I think that's one thing that Brian Kelly has often had at Notre Dame. If you look at Everett Golson, Deshaun Kaiser, Malik Zaire, Brandon Wimbush, Ian Book was very mobile, and then it kind of went out the window last year when they brought in Jack Cohn,
right,
who was kind of the opposite of that. But he has been fairly comfortable over the years with a dual threat at quarterback. And I know LSU fans are pretty concerned about the offensive line. They're hoping that that's one thing that Kelly fixes there is the offensive line issues. So it would maybe make some sense to go with a dual threat guy if they are having concerns about the offensive line. And you're right. Like, you bring in a transfer, typically that's a fairly high level transfer. Like, typically you do that because he's your starter. Like, typically that's what that leads to. However, I will say, like, and I'm going to try to do this in as how do I say this nicely? I do not want to come across as sour grapes here, but I have seen Brian Kelly drag out some quarterback competitions and not handle them extremely well. He has also handled some fairly well. So who knows? Like, maybe, I'm sure he's learned things from his tenure at Notre Dame. Like, there's lessons that coaches will learn from past mistakes. Hopefully he can do that for LSU's sake. I would tend to lean Jaden Daniels, just kind of based on what we know. Don't feel super confident in that because, like you said, there's 4 names to watch here. So
right,
who knows where this could go?
Brennan actually entering the 2018 season, he was kind of like, that was his sophomore year. He was kind of trending towards becoming the starter, kind of working his way in, and then Joe Burrow transfers in, right? So then Joe Burrow starts for 2 years and lights the world on fire and is continuing to do so, right? And then so you go to the 2020 season, and like Brennan's kind of getting rolling again a little bit. He had a really good start. He won the job kind of again for the second time, and he played really well through 3 games and then gets hurt, and hasn't really played since. Like, so. Yeah, like, this is his 6th year. I'm just kind of looking through some of his stuff now. This is his sixth year on campus. He actually was a backup to Danny Etling
Wow.
in his freshman year. Like, he's been around a long time.
Goodness.
Yeah, for his sake, I get, like, it's okay to root for him, but I think the expectation maybe that I would have is that Daniels would win the job, even though maybe we're rooting for Brennan, like, if that's fair to say.
Mm-hmm. So over under, you think? Let me just. I mean, this is tough. Like, and I'll try to answer this myself, and I'll give a reason why I'm even asking you this. But over under for quarterbacks that get meaningful playing time this coming season for LSU. I'll set it at 2.
Okay. Under.
Under.
Okay. I think there's a better chance that someone gets the job and runs with it.
Sure.
Than 3 quarterbacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, not meaningful snaps. I mean, they'll have 3 quarterbacks that will play, probably not meaningful snaps though.
Sure. Yeah, I asked it just because I guess it's been kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Notre Dame the last 10 years is, okay, let's take this guy out. It's not working right. Let's try someone else. Last year,
True.
Notre Dame played 3 quarterbacks with meaningful snaps,
right,
with Jack Cohn, Tyler Buckner, and Drew Pine. Now, it was a little different because they had very different skill sets. Like, the 3 of them, I would say, all had fairly unique skill sets to each other. And Notre Dame's offensive line was really, really bad last year, at least at the beginning of the season. So, I don't know. Like, I do think that maybe it comes down to, do they feel like these guys have unique enough skill sets? Last year with Notre Dame, the true freshman was Tyler Buckner, and he had a unique running skill set. And the reason I just point that out is because LSU's true freshman, Walker Howard, who you mentioned, he's not really that runner. He's more of just a pure thrower that we know of. So I don't know if he's quite as likely to get a lot of playing time as kind of a change of pace. But I don't know. Like, I feel like I have no idea what's going to happen. But most likely it's Jaden Daniels.
Yeah. Max Johnson transferring out too kind of maybe came out of nowhere. Like, he kind of felt that he could have almost taken that job and run with it. And then, didn't, like, clearly, but like, he was poised for that. Like, he was actually in a place to where it kind of felt like he could. And then, like, he transfers, you're like, okay, like, I get it. I guess he transfers to A&M, which, hey, segue. Let's just go right on into the A&M one.
Yes.
But I don't understand maybe. Okay, why are, like, Bo Nix? What is Bo Nix expecting from Oregon, and what is Max Johnson expecting from A&M that they weren't getting at their previous schools? It's kind of a like for like swap. Like, I don't understand leaving. Like, is NIL, like, surely not the NIL stuff. I think you can get paid just as much at Auburn as you can at Oregon. Like, I don't think that's why Nix went there. And I mean, A&M, like, I guess A&M could pay Max Johnson money, but I don't think A&M really wanted Max Johnson. Like, is that okay for me to say? Like, how is Max Johnson going to win that job when you have Haynes King, who was the starter last year until he got hurt, and then Connor Wigman, that's who everyone wants to be the starter, right? Like, that's who the fans, I'm sure, are rooting for, like the 5-star coming in. Like, he could be number 3. He could come in and be number 3 on the depth chart, where at LSU it felt like he was as experienced as anyone there. So, make it make sense for me.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can. I feel like for Max Johnson specifically, maybe it might just be as simple as him wanting to play with his younger brother, Jake, who's the number 1 tight end in the high school class coming in.
In practice. You can play with him in practice then.
Yeah, but I do think that you're probably right. Like, if Johnson stays at LSU, you feel good about his chances of taking over that job or like holding on to it, I guess would be more accurate. And they probably don't take Jaden Daniels in that situation because Johnson felt kind of entrenched a little bit. Like, that's I don't know. Like, he kind of did feel entrenched at A&M. Like, I sort of feel like Haynes King might be the favorite because he won that job a year ago.
That's where I would lean as well. Like, I would be on the same train there. So the 3 options: Max Johnson, Haynes King, Connor Wigman. Wigman's a little young. I think it's really difficult to be a true freshman and light the world on fire in the SEC, especially in the SEC West. That's a gnarly division. Like, I think Haynes King, who when he did play, he didn't play much, but when he did play, he was above average. Like he actually he showed signs. How about that? He was a extremely high recruit coming in, and he kind of flashed a little bit. Maybe didn't have the consistency, but he definitely showed you like he showed some shiny, yeah, kind of like all the shiny cool toys. Like he had some neat stuff. Like he's mobile, has a really nice arm, very accurate. So I would lean Haynes King as well. I think just having a year to sit there, maybe, yeah, a little bit more experience in the system is good. He's going to be the only one with any experience, even what little he does have. He's the only one with any experience at A&M. So, I would probably I'd be leaning Haynes King right now.
Now, I will say the one thing Max Johnson will have at A&M more than LSU would just be probably a better offensive line, better protection. And because he has the kind of that pocket passer, like I
Yeah.
could see it working out where if he just has, that extra half second to throw the ball every time, maybe he turns into Joe Burrow light, like maybe
Oh.
maybe it really works out for him with better protection at A&M than he got at LSU because like we talked about, the offensive line was a bit of an issue at LSU the last couple of years. And A&M has been quite consistent there. Like they pretty consistently have good offensive lines.
I mean, okay, he's not Joe Burrow. He never will be Joe Burrow.
That's why I said light.
Breaking, spoiler alert. Max Johnson is not as good as Joe Burrow. Like I'm comfortable with that take.
Max Johnson's dad actually won the Super Bowl. Oh.
Well, okay, yes. On one of the worst, he was one of the worst quarterbacks to ever win a Super Bowl ever.
You're absolutely right.
Completely carried to that. And Max Johnson, I feel like will get lost in the shuffle. I think Haynes King is probably the guy this year. I think Connor Wigman's probably the guy next year. I like that's the setup. That's how the coaches are planning it, right? Mm-hmm. That's what the fan base is rooting for. I don't understand Johnson going there. I know you want to play with your brother. That's neat. You can throw with him in practice quite a bit. That's kind of it. I think I don't understand why Johnson wouldn't want to go to. Why not go to like Louisiana Tech or something, mm-hmm. like where you can go and get a lot of reps. I don't really understand. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I guess hey, he gets to do whatever he wants. It's a bad decision, and he'll never play again.
So if you're A&M, is the playing with Wigman, the true freshman, is it play him 4 games, get that red shirt, and then have him for 4 more years? Or do you think that it's the type of thing where you actually try to give him legit spot duty 8-9 games this year? Because you could also use Max Johnson in that spot duty role if you don't want to give Wigman more than 4 games so you can preserve that red shirt.
Okay, so just hear me out on this. With the new transfer rules, mm-hmm. redshirting, I think, is going to become almost obsolete. Mm. Like, I don't think anyone's going to redshirt. Why would you redshirt? What, like, I don't really, unless there's some very specific, like, instances where, okay, I would understand it. But if Wigman's the guy that we think that he is, he's not going to stick around for 5 years. He's not going to be on campus for 5 years. He's going to go to the NFL. So, like, you get him 3. And he's not, by the way, like, if he's still not starting until like year 4, he's transferring anyway. He's leaving. He's going somewhere else. So you're still not getting him for year 4 and 5. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't understand why. Like, I think the goal would be to try to get him in and get him as many meaningful reps as you can. If he's the number 2 guy, which, like, we're assuming that he will be, not assuming that he starts. He could, but doubtful. So you're assuming he's the number 2 guy. You try to get him meaningful snaps this year and just hope he stays. Like, pretty much. And I think if Wigman isn't starting by next year, he's probably gone. Like, isn't that kind of where we're at with stuff? Like, I don't think you can just, like, well, red shirt and be around 4 more years. Like, he has no plan on sticking around if he's not playing, right? And, like, that's kind of what a red shirt is. Just stick around and not play.
Yeah. I do think for just about any quarterback, regardless of how highly they're ranked, like, most guys, it's going to take a year before they're really ready to play a lot. Like,
right,
you can play some, but before you are ready to play a lot, it's going to take a year.
Right.
So I think there's not a whole lot of downside to just playing a guy 4 games unless you really think he can help you win. Like, if you think he can help you win by playing spot duty, in 7 or 8 games, then you kind of have to do that. I mean, coaches are in the business of winning now. Like they're not preparing. They're not trying to win for the future. They're trying to win now. So like I do think if he gives them something that Haynes King and Max Johnson don't, like that's when you pull the red shirt off. But I do think that if his skill set is maybe just kind of as a true freshman, he's not giving you anything extra, then I do expect them to just play him spot duty in 4 games. And then that's why, and you have Haynes King and Max Johnson who can carry the ship, especially with the talent around them. Like, I don't know that you expect A&M's quarterback to be the reason that they're winning 10 games this year or whatever. Like they're the reason that they might be the reason that they're not losing 4 or 5, but they're also like they're steering the boat. They're not actually propelling it.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Just they're like pretty much like don't run into the islands. Just kind of keep it in the water.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
Essentially. Yeah.
Exactly.
Like we've as long as we're in the water, like we're fine. Just kind of avoid the islands on the way in.
So our final prediction is Haynes King. Is that accurate?
I just saw that Max Johnson threw for 27 TDs and only 6 picks last year.
He's pretty decent.
He's not bad.
He's not bad.
I slandered him maybe a bit much.
Yeah.
Wow. Haynes King. I'll go with Haynes King.
Yeah, I'm a little less certain that Connor Wigman will play this year. Like I do think this is going to be Haynes King and Max Johnson most of the year, or one or the other. But
right, maybe my point was that you have to get him at least a little bit, give him a taste. That way he doesn't leave next year.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go to Oregon. You mentioned Bo Nix a little bit. To kind of answer your earlier question about Bo Nix, why would you go to Oregon? Surely it has to just do with the coaching, right? Like because everyone there is unhappy with Brian Harsin, supposedly, and maybe he just needs that fresh slate. Like I feel like that has to almost be the entire reason.
Yeah, yes and no. Yeah, no, I agree. I think because it doesn't really make sense for him for any other reason, right? Like Oregon, even if they're like it's kind of a little bit of a rebuild, right? Like it's a new coaching staff, like it's a first year staff, and he's kind of he graduated from Auburn, right? I think he actually graduated there and then left. So yeah, like I guess I'm okay with Nix going more. But like he was kind of like an Auburn guy. I mean, he was a legacy. Like his dad had played there or whatever. Like, and to see him leave, it that one maybe gave me as much pause about Brian Harsin as anything else. I think, that one kind of confused me because if you're really an Auburn guy, why would you leave there to go to the other side of the country and like play for a first year coach? Like it didn't really make sense. But like I think Oregon's lucky to have him. Like I think he'll be the starter there. I don't think it's much of a quarterback. It's him versus Ty Thompson, but like I'm assuming Bo Nix runs away with this job personally. I think Bo Nix actually played really well last year and was the only reason that Auburn was really competitive in some of these games. Bo Nix played pretty decent, and I don't want to just say that he's not. I think Bo Nix kind of gets the short end of the stick a little bit, but he's a very talented kid, especially when you can get him mobile and get him outside the pocket and like making plays. Yeah, like he could do really well at Oregon. I think he'll have probably a pretty good year, and he would for sure be my starter pick right now.
Same. I do think maybe one other reason that he could have gone there is just like if you want to win a little more, who has the best chance to win their conference this year of those two? Definitely Oregon.
For sure.
And, they're not winning the national title this year, but there's a chance they could make a New Year's Six bowl or, sneak into the playoff if 12 things go correct, there's that slight possibility where that's not happening at Auburn this year. That's just, and so maybe he's just, we've always talked about, and every announcer that has ever called a Bo Nix game the last 3 years has talked about what a gamer he is and he just wants to win. So maybe this is his way of trying to win a little more. So
fair enough.
But I agree with you. I think the fact that we saw 0 of Ty Thompson last year when Anthony Brown was their quarterback and was really nothing to write home about, was that not a little worrying? Like, does it feel to you like maybe Ty Thompson is like, I'm not writing him off as a bust just yet, but like it feels like maybe he's leaning that way.
No, that's fair. I think that when you compare him to Nix, which is what we're doing here, like maybe it's not fair to compare him to Nix, but like Nix was also a 5-star, right? That came in and
Yeah,
has a truckload of experience against excellent defenses. Like that's something that Ty Thompson just doesn't give you. You know what I mean? Like
sure.
all that combined. It's not that Thompson's the young talented guy and Nix is kind of the old veteran that like kind of the war horse, right? That kind of has a noodle arm. Like no,
Yeah.
like Nix can sling the ball and Nix is very like he has all the measurables. He's a 5-star himself,
Hmm.
and yeah, like having all that experience against all the good defenses that he has and all the stuff that he's seen, like I don't understand how he would lose it. And calling Thompson a bust,
Yeah, I'm not
like,
ready to call him that yet, but I'm my red flags are going up a little bit.
well, I mean, some of them just do. Like not all 5-star
Yeah.
quarterbacks end up playing well, right? Like not or end up even playing.
Yeah. So I guess part of the reason I it makes me a little uneasy is just the fact that they took Bo Nix. Okay, so they're actually kind of in a similar position to Notre Dame. Notre Dame last year had Tyler Buckner as a true freshman, who
Yeah.
was roughly the same ranking as Ty Thompson, and there was just a few whispers in the offseason, like right the end of December maybe, about Notre Dame possibly going after Keaton Slovis. And it was quickly shut down by the Notre Dame staff, like, no, we're not. Tyler Buckner, Drew Pine, those are our guys going forward. We don't need Keaton Slovis. And Slovis ends up at Pitt. Well,
Hmm.
I feel like, if Notre Dame gives Keaton Slovis a guarantee to start next year, like he's coming to Notre Dame. So I feel like Notre Dame kind of, we'll talk about them more later, but they feel pretty good about their young quarterbacks, Buckner and Pine. If I'm an Oregon fan, like I think I would be hoping that Ty Thompson has shown enough in practice that we're planning on him being the guy going forward. And I think bringing in Bo Nix, while a positive thing for your immediate future, like it
Yeah.
does, it would worry me a little bit as an Oregon fan. And that's not necessarily a slam on Bo Nix. It's more just, okay, are they not seeing what they need to see from Ty Thompson? Because they've had him for a season now, and
Right.
you would think if he would be lighting the world on fire in practice, they wouldn't have had to bring in Bo Nix.
Well, and hey, to be fair, like maybe that was just Dan Lanning seeing something. Like I'm not going
Mm-hmm.
to put all of my eggs in one basket with Ty Thompson. I'm at
True.
least going to bring along this guy. Where I know what he
Yeah.
is. Like we can
Right.
put him in, and we can win nine games, 9 or 10 games with Bo Nix, and like we're confident in that. It gives you
Yeah.
maybe a little higher of a floor. Whereas if Ty Thompson falls apart, you have no other options. Maybe that's kind of what Nix was brought in for.
Yeah, that's an excellent point too. Because if you're Dan Lanning in your first season, like if you can just have a high floor, win 9 games,
Yeah.
like no one's going to be calling for your job after 1 year. Like
Right.
you bought yourself an extra year probably with a 9-3 type of season, and you feel pretty good about the ability to go 9-3 with a Bo Nix.
Yes. Correct. Correct.
Yeah. Okay, so that's Oregon. Let's go to Texas next. You mentioned them a little bit. So
Okay.
kind of the two main names are Hudson Card and Quinn Ewers.
Yep.
There's also, I believe, Malik Murphy. Maybe he's the true freshman. I'm not sure. But I feel like it's Ewers and Card. Those are the main names here.
Hmm.
What are you thinking about this race? Like, because Ewers, of course, was the generational quarterback, that everyone fell in love with.
Sure.
But Hudson Card was also kind of the guy who won the job last year and has tools, I guess. Like,
Hmm.
was also a fairly highly rated quarterback coming out of high school. What do you think? What is your early prediction? What are your thoughts on this one?
Okay. So Quinn Ewers, it's a case study. Like this one's just interesting here. Okay, so he hasn't. Let's just say he hasn't put himself in a great position this far in. Granted, he's a sophomore, but he's really a freshman. Like he came out early, right? Goes to Ohio State and makes a lot of money.
Hmm.
But there is something to it that it doesn't. This isn't always true, but it feels like when you leave a school to go to somewhere else, it's because you weren't good enough there.
Hmm.
CJ Stroud didn't have he was not incredible the first 4 games of his, like the first 4 games last year. Stroud
Right.
struggled. He did against Oregon. He was okay. They lost that game. Against games prior, was there one against, I think maybe Tulsa or Toledo, one of those two, and like it did not go. It was not going well. He ended up turning it around. Right. He's excellent. Quinn Ewers wasn't even really mentioned in that. Like he was kind of buried in the depth chart. He was number 4, like the 4th quarterback, in
Hmm.
behind McCord and Jack Miller. Like, okay, is it okay for me to say that Quinn Ewers has bust potential? Is that okay for me to say?
Absolutely. And I don't think you're completely, yeah, like I don't think that's just a completely stupid thing to think. For me personally, my money would still be on Ewers to win this job.
Sure. No. Okay. I want to say it. Yes. Correct. But if he doesn't win this job, it feels like Quinn Ewers could be like Tate Martell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that fair enough?
Could
goes
be.
goes to Ohio State, then transfers for 5 different schools, trying to find some playing time at receiver or whatever. Like that could happen. I think it at least has potential. It could happen.
I do think that, okay, so Martell, one of the things people liked about him was as his athleticism and stuff like that. I think
Yeah.
we've seen enough from Ewers throwing wise, even in camps and whatnot. Like the arm talent is clearly superior to what Martell had. So I don't
Okay.
think he'll be a bust on that level. Like to me, his floor is significantly higher than that. But also, like if you look at the other side of this, Hudson Card kind of won the job last year, but it didn't take long to figure out that Casey Thompson was just a lot better fit for
Right.
Texas. And Casey Thompson transferred to Nebraska.
Yeah.
Like to me, like my money being on Ewers here almost has as much to do with a lack of faith in Card as it does with feeling like Ewers will turn into some All-American.
Well, why did Thompson transfer? Anyone know?
See, I feel like if he was still at Texas, he would be considered second in the running, probably like by the fans, which who knows what they know, but
Right.
he would be the second favorite quarterback there. Well, at Nebraska, like I feel like we'll talk about them maybe more later, but he's got the inside track, I would have to think. And if you're Casey Thompson, probably you just want to play. Like you want to be the starting quarterback at a Power 5 team.
So he doesn't think that he would play next year. Like, is that kind of what you don't think that Casey Thompson would? If Casey Thompson was there, I would put money on him to be the starter over Quinn Ewers right now.
You would. Interesting.
I think
See,
so.
I think I would still go Ewers.
Well, I would get odds though. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not the betting favorite. I think Casey Thompson would be a sneaky starter there at Texas. And he's for sure going to be the starter at Nebraska. Like you can just pull up pages already. He's already the QB1 in all their practices. He just got there. So, yeah, okay. Quinn Ewers is the favorite. Quinn Ewers should be the favorite. But if you want to bet and make some money, go the other way. Maybe that's what I'm saying.
Okay. I hear you, but I think I would probably just save my money.
Okay.
Like I do think that there is a chance that Ewers is a bit of a bust. I also think there's a chance this goes extremely well. Like,
Yeah.
if anybody that transferred this year has a chance to be the next Joe Burrow or Kyler Murray, like it's him. Like we know the talent is there. Obviously, he has to prove it. Like I'm not here predicting that he'll be an All-American this year, but I think there's a reasonable chance of that happening. There's what a 30% chance he'll be one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the country this year. Like it's a whole lot better than most quarterbacks in the country can say.
He has a very high ceiling. The ceiling there is
Yes.
very high. And if you're Texas, absolutely you want him. I mean, he was the most desired transfer probably this year, right? Like as far as just from a talent perspective. No, it's a good move for Texas. He will probably be the starter there at Texas for sure at some point. They're at least going to give him a shot and see what they've got there. But yeah, I just wonder if I don't know. It just feels a little Tate Martell-ish. That's all I'm going to say.
Sure, that makes sense to me. Okay, where to go next? Well, I mentioned Nebraska. Maybe we just slide right into that one real quick. I don't know that we have a whole lot to talk about there, but Casey Thompson is kind of the big name, but there's also Chubba Purdy, Brock Purdy's little brother who came from Florida State. And there's also a few other names there who I know nothing about, so I'm not even going to pretend. Do you just kind of assume this is Casey Thompson's job to lose?
Well, I mean, yeah, like the offensive coordinator just said that he's the best one right now.
Okay.
So
All
like
right.
they said nothing's set in stone, but he's the best one we have. So
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
that sounds
that's
pretty
that
set in stone.
yeah, that's kind of locks it down.
So is it more interesting to ask if like how good he will actually be? Like does he save the job? Like is Nebraska
Oh,
going bowling next year?
oh my. In the Big Ten, they should have bowled this year. I mean, they were
Yeah.
competitive in literally every game they played. Maybe this year is just a little bit of the boost they need at quarterback
Mm,
to kind of get them over the edge. I would hope so.
yeah.
Dear Lord, I would hope so.
I would just say like we've both watched Adrian Martinez play quarterback,
Yes.
and Nebraska, second order wins would say they should have won like 7 games last year and they won 3.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
there is just no way that Casey Thompson is not better than Adrian Martinez in my mind. Like,
Correct. I agree.
and their
Yep.
luck will turn. Like, I wouldn't be shocked at all if they went 7-5 next year. Like,
No,
and I think,
I think they could. Yeah.
yeah, and that would definitely save Scott Frost's job. Like, if you improve by 4 wins and make a bowl game, like, yeah, no one is like throwing a parade for you at Nebraska if you go 7-5. But if you follow a 3-9 season with a 7-5 season, yeah, he's sticking around.
Fair enough.
My personal opinion.
Okay.
Okay, so there's multiple other jobs here. Are there any that jump out to you that we should talk about right away here?
So we haven't got to Michigan, Florida, or Clemson yet.
Right.
And those are big ones for me. I think all of those are very interesting. And these are probably the best ones. I think like if you're going to sit down and talk and have a podcast about like college football position battles, I think these three can have as much impact on the 2022 season as anything. Certainly with Clemson, I think with JJ McCarthy and Cade McNamara, I mean that's a playoff team. Like that was a playoff team
Michigan.
last year. Or with Michigan, what did I say?
You
Yeah.
said Clemson, but yeah.
Clemson was not a Clemson has they were definitely not a playoff team. They have a quarterback competition, as does Michigan. I believe that McNamara and McCarthy, that one there is I think really interesting because we've seen
Yeah.
it. I think I would lean McCarthy.
Okay.
That's just probably where I mean I think we saw Harbaugh kind of lean that direction even in the the playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
They want to get him on the field, right? And when you
Yeah.
have a coaching staff that is making excuses to get this guy on the field, it's only a matter of time before I think he takes over, and I think he'll do well. I think McCarthy will do well in that system, kind of a run first system. Maybe do a little bit of zone read stuff. Like we know they're super physical, love to run the ball, kind of get like an athletic quarterback out on the edges making plays. I think that's really smart. So yeah, I would lean McCarthy, even though McNamara has done nothing to lose that job. Like he did absolutely nothing to lose that job, and maybe that's unfair to go the other way.
So tell me that I'm wrong here. I feel like there's this constant struggle for college football coaches to go with the safe option over the high ceiling, low floor, risky option. And that's not a Harbaugh thing specifically. I'm saying just
Yeah.
college football coaches in general.
Yeah.
And is it fair to say that this is just kind of like it's a bit of a risk? Like going with McCarthy would be a bit of a risk, but maybe it's the thing that they should choose, like if they want to raise the ceiling a little bit.
Correct. And normally Harbaugh is a very he would strike you as the guy that plays it kind of conservative, right?
Yeah.
That would kind of be his mantra or kind of his thing. That's what you would think of him as. But I think where I'd come back to it is that they kept repeatedly trying to get McCarthy meaningful snaps
Yeah.
in big games. There were some games he should never have been playing. Like he should never have been playing against Georgia. He had nothing. He really didn't. Like he got blown up when he tried to run to the sideline. Like he had nothing to offer there, but they kept trying to get him and kind of force him into some of these games. And I think that says something about where the coaching staff is at mentally with these
Yeah.
guys. They're trying to force this guy in and get him snaps. That's maybe where I would be going with it. I think McNamara is probably the favorite, probably the odds-on favorite right now. If I don't know, does Vegas have odds on these? This would be interesting.
I'm not
We need to
sure.
get Vegas's odds on this. But I would probably be leaning McCarthy right now.
What I think what I would imagine will happen, and I imagine this is not just specific to Michigan. Like I think this is one of those battles where if you're the head coach, you keep this one close to the vest. You say all the things about it being 50-50, past the summer transfer deadline, like because you want to make sure you hold on to both of these quarterbacks for the upcoming season.
Yeah.
And then I do kind of think that Michigan, because of what you've said, because McCarthy so clearly has a higher ceiling, like I do think you probably start him, if not in game one, like by the end of the season, I think he's the starter. And you do everything you can to keep McNamara, what's the right word? Engaged, I guess. Like maybe. And maybe for him that's giving him some snaps here and there. Like I don't know if he'll I don't know. Like there's a lot of ways this could go. But I do think you keep them both engaged through the summer, and then come fall, like I wouldn't be surprised if they just try to unleash McCarthy.
You like unleash him, you think?
Yeah. To me it makes too much sense. Like surely they can't screw that up.
Yeah. No, probably not. That's kind of where I would be leaning as well. Like, well, I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
I'm saying this as someone, okay, so Caden McNamara was once committed to Notre Dame.
Oh.
And it was like, he was kind of that low 4-star that you're like,
yeah.
Oh, he's a good stopgap year guy,
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of exactly what he's been for Michigan. Like he's just been a very solid, nothing wrong with him. Also nothing too spectacular. Like you're not at all surprised they lost to Georgia. But if they had had Trevor Lawrence in that game, they might have won. Like, probably not. But they would have had a better chance. And I'm not saying J.J. McCarthy is Trevor Lawrence, but he's the guy whose ceiling is definitely closer to that.
I do think that says a little bit about Michigan, where they were last year. Like they beat Ohio State, and they beat them because they were the better team. It wasn't nothing fluky about it. They were better. They won the Big Ten, and it wasn't fluky with a kind of a Stetson Bennett type at quarterback, right? Like I think we can compare. It's okay to compare McNamara and Stetson Bennett. That's not unfair to either guy.
It almost feels unfair to McNamara.
Oh.
But I shouldn't say that because Bennett did he did have good numbers last year, surrounded by NFL players. But
surrounded. Oh, it's that team. That team will go down in history as one of the most loaded, like NFL talent-rich teams of all time, and it's going to be Stetson Bennett, who's like a lawyer. Like
I saw
a lawyer.
I saw some love for Trayvon Walker going number 1 overall today.
It's a thing. It's buzz at this point. It's not just a little bit. He's trending. He is trending high. I will say that guy is freaky. Like so many guys on that team for Georgia were just freaky. It was incredible that was able to happen. But okay, back to Michigan though. Like Michigan kind of had a little bit of that too. Like they got all of this done. They beat Ohio State, won the Big Ten, made it to the playoff. Mm-hmm. Huge success for Harbaugh, and you did it with an average quarterback, slightly above average quarterback. He was slightly above average. We can go with that.
Yeah.
And you have a 5-star there on your bench. I just think that. Like, I don't think McNamara can beat Ohio State twice. I don't believe that. I think to go on because you're going to have to go to the shoe this year to beat them. I think you're going to want McCarthy there with experience, bring your big guns, and like we're going to have to do it maybe slightly differently than we did last year. Maybe where I think the coaching staff should be at. Yeah,
I do think that the Georgia comparison is interesting. If I recall, we actually kind of said going into that playoff game that Michigan is Georgia with 4 stars, where Georgia has 5 stars. Kind of just a little brother version of the same thing. And I think if you're Michigan, you have to know if you want to stay on this level where you actually win the Big Ten, make the playoff. You lost a lot on defense. Your offense is going to have to pick it up. It might lower your floor, but you kind of gotta give J.J. McCarthy a good chance here, like in my opinion.
Yeah. No. Agreed.
Okay, so let's talk about Clemson.
Okay.
So we had Troy on last week, and he kind of came around to the idea that he thinks Uiagalelei might be the guy all year. Yeah. And I was interested by that. What did you think about that?
That one surprised me. I figured he would just be ready to throw him out the second he could, just kick him to the curb. And his take was surprising. I was not expecting so much. I don't know if maturity is not the right word. Sorry,
but usually the fan base wants the new shiny toy.
Right. Yeah. They're irrational, man. Like, we want the 5-star and we want him now. We want this year's 5-star because last year's sucked, and we want this year. And we got the number one of all, like the number one of all the quarterbacks. This guy was the best this past year, and we want him, dadgummit. Like, that's where I would expect the fan base to be. And I think they were surprisingly kind of like mature about it, and just like rational. So credit to them there. Is it okay? Okay. Having said that, is it okay, like, for Uiagalelei to come back, like, and be the starter again? He did not have a good year. That is okay to say. He did not have a good year.
But
I struggle. He threw 9 touchdowns, 9 and 10 picks. 9 touchdowns, 10 picks. That's bad. That's not good. That's against bad defenses in the ACC too. That's not against. I mean, it's one thing if you're playing against Georgia every week. You only play Georgia once. Mm-hmm. Like, he should be able to light up like Wake Forest, like some of the weaker teams. Did they play Georgia Tech? Probably. Like, he should have lit up the ACC. That's a struggle for me, man.
I think if we had never seen true freshman DJ played against Boston College and Notre Dame, a Notre Dame team that beat him and made the playoff, by the way, like a good Notre Dame team. Yeah. And he set the all-time record for passing yards against Notre Dame in a game. Like, if we had never seen that version of him, like, I would be so off. Like, there's not even a chance. Like, I'd be like, as soon as Klubnik is ready, you kind of have to go with him. But, like, we have seen DJU play so well because it felt almost hopeless to stop him in that game. Like, as a Notre Dame fan, it was absolutely no fun trying to stop that guy. And, you know, like, it's a little bit like Zach Calzada a year ago. Like, that one game, that one magical game against Alabama, is going to give the Auburn fan base probably a little too much hope. But, and maybe I just have a little too much hope for DJU. But also, like, this was a guy who was the number 2 recruit in the country coming out of high school. Like, this is a guy who has all of the tools. And if it's true that he was hurt last year, and we know the offensive line was crap last year, and we know the receivers. I know Troy kind of defended the receivers, but I still feel like they were not playing to their potential last year. Like,
they disappointed. Yeah.
They did. Like, I just feel like if all of it comes together and the offense figures it out a little bit, like, I just wouldn't be shocked if he put up 30 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Like, I just wouldn't be that shocked.
Right. Yeah. No, that's fair enough. Like, is it fair though to put that much on him just from that one game, right? Like, so
no.
if you had only seen him last year, right, and you didn't have the Notre Dame game from the year before to go on, you only had last year. This guy he looks extremely unathletic. He doesn't look accurate at all, and he's not confident. His footwork is trash, and like nothing. It all fell apart. Like. There's a certain amount of, like, it just completely fell apart. And that was worst case scenario for Clemson. Like, quarterback wise, it was like, that was worst case scenario. Your offensive line couldn't really block. And like, their running backs, their only good one got hurt. Right. And the receivers like Justin Ross, nothing really worked. And it's okay to say their receivers weren't good because they weren't last year. Their receivers were not very good. So I'm just going to, just go with me here for a second, just 1 second. So in 2014, Deshaun Watson, who kind of comes in kind of as the same type of thing, 5-star quarterback, all the billing. In the 4th game of the year, he overcame senior Cole Stout, right? Remember Cole? I don't know if you remember Cole Stout.
Yes.
That was the 4th game of the year. That was in 2014. Mm-hmm. Okay, he becomes the starter. Yep, never looks back, goes to the NFL. 2018, Trevor Lawrence, and finally gets past Kelly Bryant. Remember that? Like, that was a whole deal for a while. It was Kelly Bryant, Trevor Lawrence, and he finally beat him out. But that. I don't think Trevor didn't start week 1 though. I think that was also like a mid-season change as well.
Week 5.
Was it week 5? Okay.
Their 5th game, because I remember they could have waited another week and Bryant would have lost his last remaining college eligibility.
Right.
But they they kind of did him the service of naming Trevor Lawrence the starter, and he immediately sat out the rest of the year, or announced that he was sitting out the rest of the year. Then he transferred to Missouri for one last season because
Right.
he played in 4 games. Then they went with Trevor. But yeah,
That's
continue
right.
your thought.
Right. I'm just saying, is that maybe what happens here? Like, I'm just, the possibility of that. I think maybe Troy even alluded to it last week. Maybe that's kind of how this coaching staff, that's how Dabo does things. He like slowly integrates, and kind of builds towards the end of the year. And good for him. Like that's awesome that he's flexible and open-minded enough to do that.
Yeah.
But like I think that is more likely than DJU just going off and having just an incredible year again. Like for me, that's the more likely scenario. We don't know how it's going to turn out. Like spring practice, anything could happen. Like some of the guys we talk about, someone's going to get hurt here, and lose a job. And suddenly we're going to have a position battle where we didn't expect it, or where we did expect a position battle. Now there is none because there's only one guy left. Like some of that's going to happen. But I think so. We kind of have to go with what's more likely right now, and I think it's more likely that Klubnik comes in halfway through the year or a third of the way through the year and works his way and earns the spot and then doesn't look back. For me, that's probably the most likely scenario.
Well, I do think that if DJ plays like he did a year ago, like it's no question. Like by October, Klubnik will be starting. True freshman issues and all. Like if DJ is playing like he was that last year, yeah, that's what's happening. If DJ plays like he did in limited action in 2020, I think he plays the whole year. Probably goes to the NFL. He is a junior after all, and Klubnik is the starter next year. So either way, I think Klubnik is the guy in 2023.
Yeah.
Like either in DJU, he will either be in the NFL or he will be transferring somewhere else. Like, to USF or wherever, But man, it's so hard. Like, I don't know. You think it's probably more likely that DJU is not that 5-star guy who lives up to the billing. I'm not sure. Like, I'm almost 50-50 on it. Like, I think that I could very easily see DJ being in the NFL draft a year from now.
Oh, okay. So, who's he going to throw the ball to? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so we're expecting him to have a good year, and he needs this. Like, he needs the first 4 games for Clemson. He has to have good games. Those all need to be good for DJU because the pressure is going to be intense, right? So he has to have 4 good games out the gate.
Yeah.
I don't like who are we thinking is going to throw the ball to again? I know we're acting like they have good receivers. I understand that, and some of them are highly rated, but they didn't pick up any huge pieces from last year, and they didn't have a good core last year. Like their receiving core wasn't very good, and it's not like you went and just got a whole bunch of elite recruits. You might have some that are kind of diamonds in the rough. I mean, maybe you hit on a few, but like it's okay to say that the receiving core is a large question mark, and we're going into this with DJ really needing that receiving core to keep him that job in the first while. You know what I'm saying? So that's maybe where I would go to, like, it's maybe a little unfair to expect that much out of him. I do think that's what he'll need to keep his job, but I'm saying maybe it's a little unfair.
So I do think it is a good sign that one of the guys that flashed a year ago was Bo Collins, who was a true freshman. And I expect him to probably be the number 1 guy this year.
Okay.
And Troy talked some about Adam Randall, the true freshman this year. Again, like Justin Ross was a special case as a true freshman who was doing incredible things in the playoff. But even he was not lighting the world on fire the first half of his freshman year.
Right.
So, like, I do think there is definitely a question about that. Like, I don't know that Adam Randall, probably by their bowl game, he'll be their number 2 guy. I wouldn't be shocked at all. Yeah. I think they're really counting on Bo Collins to step it up. Like, as a sophomore, like, I would imagine that he would kind of be the guy. And we know he's talented. He was very highly ranked. Ohio State wanted him bad. Everyone else, really, that is a big name in receiver recruiting wanted him.
Right.
And he chose Clemson. I do think that between him and I like the running back. He will also be a sophomore. Remind me of his name again.
Will Shipley.
Shipley. Like, I do think that some of the freshmen that flashed last year are now sophomores, and I think there will be enough talent. To me, the bigger issue is will they be able to protect him? Like, is he going to be healthy? And will the offensive line be able to give him 4 seconds to throw the ball?
For me, the nice thing for us is like right now we're just kind of making predictions, like what do we think's going to happen, but we get to watch this one happen. The Clemson quarterback battle for me is the position battle to watch of the spring, like
Okay.
and how that works out. I think there's going to be I really do, and I know that Dabo maybe doesn't, even if they're really like stud NFL. I mean, Deshaun and Trevor didn't start week 1 their freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
Like they had to work their way into it. So it's okay to presume that DJ might be the starter week 1, but by week 4, week 5, I think it's going to really like there's a lot that's going to happen, I think, between now and week 5, and it's just something to keep an eye on. I think if Clemson gets their quarterback room correct and right, they have, I mean, like in a weak ACC, like they're a playoff team, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's that important to just to keep paying attention to Clemson and that quarterback battle.
So I made Troy pick last week, and I'll just put it to you and then also to myself. First game in November is Clemson at Notre Dame. Who do you think is starting in that game for Clemson? It's tough. This is a tough one.
I'd probably go Klubnik, I think. Right now, I'd lean that way. Yeah, okay. I would lean that way for sure right now, subject to change. If DJ comes into spring practice and is just like shredded and has lost, 20 pounds and it's like suddenly he's quick again, like that's a different thing. I'm right now, knowing what we know, I would probably lean Klubnik.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go DJ just to be a little different. Also, like we compared this to the last two, even if Klubnik is that level of talent with Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
I think that I think we can fairly safely assume that with a normal amount of growth from a year ago, like, and being healthy and all that, like he's pretty clearly better than Cole Stout and the other name escapes me real quick.
Kelly Bryant.
Like I do think this is a little different than those just because I think he's pretty clearly better than those guys. Maybe not Bryant, just because Bryant did play pretty well, but I think I expect him to be better than Kelly Bryant, and I don't think Cade Klubnik is quite a Trevor Lawrence. He might be the next best thing, but I'm 51% for DJ starting against Notre Dame.
Good deal. All right, fair enough.
All right, Florida. So Anthony Richardson and Jack Miller are kind of the two names there. Emory Jones is in the portal, I guess. Yeah. Feels like he was probably going to be the third guy, and we saw plenty of him last year. Didn't exactly inspire a ton of confidence in his future. I guess we might give him a passing mention depending where he transfers, but I don't imagine that we'll be watching a whole lot of Emory Jones this next season because I don't know that he'll get a great job. But Florida, Anthony Richardson, the talented guy who played some last year and is just kind of a freaky athlete. Huge dude, by the way. If you want to talk about like Cam Newton body types, Anthony Richardson is your guy. Yep. And then Jack Miller, the transfer from Ohio State, was kind of the third or fourth guy in the battle for Ohio State a year ago.
Yep.
Two fairly different options here.
I think like Anthony Richardson is what everyone assumes. I think Jack Miller could be the starter week 1. He's only been there for, he's just gotten to Florida. He has really impressed so far and the limited practice. Like coaches sometimes too, like they don't really give you much to go on. Like it's not like you can just watch every rep, So we kind of have to go on what the coaches tell us. But what the coaches tell us does matter a bit. Like, I mean, Napier doesn't have a reason to lie yet, So like he's not Dan Mullen where he's just, intentionally misleading you. So like, I think he's telling the truth when he's saying that Jack Miller is impressing. I'm putting some stock in that. Like he's apparently doing quite well in practice, connecting well with the receivers. Like he's a sneaky one. Yeah. Like he is not, by the way, he's not one of these under recruited guys. Like Jack Miller has some talent. He has a lot of talent, and we kind of forget about him. Maybe kind of like Kyle McCord. Like you kind of forget that they're still there. But Miller's a ball player, and that one, it could be a really good fit there. For Napier. We'll see.
Yeah, I feel like I have no idea where this one's going because they're so different. Like
Yeah.
AR-15 is that just absolute athletic freak. We saw him hurdle a defender last year. And I feel like when he throws the ball, he looked raw last year.
Yeah.
But it comes out of his hand real nice. And you can fall in love with that a little too quickly. We see that in the NFL every year. There's always about 2 quarterbacks that get drafted 3 rounds too high because the ball looks so nice coming out of their hand. But I don't know, I don't know. And Jack Miller, if he's the guy that can lead them to a solid 9-3 type of season, I don't know. Who do you think Florida fans want to win this job?
Anthony Richardson. They want Anthony Richardson, no doubt. But
okay,
9-3 is wildly high. Wildly high.
That's what I was saying. If Jack Miller gets you there, you settle for that if you're a Florida fan, for sure.
And love it. You would love every second of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Richardson probably has a higher ceiling, or at least it appears, right, that he has a higher ceiling. And maybe that's kind of what you're building towards. Miller would probably be the better quarterback tomorrow.
Okay.
Maybe that's where I would lean, and then you try to keep developing Richardson. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know. It's so hard to know. Like the whole transfer, coaches bringing in transfers. It's kind of similar to what Bo Nix, going along to Oregon, with Dan Lanning. It's like a new coach comes in and he has to at least bring one quarterback along with him just to kind of maybe give him options. And maybe that's kind of what this is here. So yeah, I don't have strong opinions on it. I don't think Florida's going to be very good either way. I think they have kind of a wrecking ball of a schedule. But yeah, I would probably I would like Jack Miller's chances right now. I'd say that.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with you. And I do think, again, we kind of mentioned it with, I can't remember which other new coach we mentioned it with, but there was another new coach that we said, no, I can't remember who it was. But we basically said that if this quarterback is solid, they hold on to their job, basically.
That was Scott Frost, at Nebraska. No, and then Dan Lanning as well.
That's who I was thinking
at Oregon.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Dan Lanning at Oregon. If Bo Nix is just solid and they go to 9-3, no one is calling for your job after 1 year, even the most rabid fans. And right. I think if Jack Miller is that guy for Florida, where you 8-4 or whatever. If you go 8-4 with the guy who's just a really solid quarterback, which I don't know anything. He might turn out to be way better than that. We don't know. But, okay, so one thing I always think about as a fan of football, if you are choosing between two guys, and the one guy is a 10 athletically and a 6 throwing the ball, and the other guy is a 3 athletically and a 8 throwing the ball, you kind of want the guy who's an 8 throwing the ball. Is that
right?
Is that fair?
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And maybe that's what Jack Miller is. And
sure.
Also, he just came out of he transferred from a place where he had to compete for a starting job and clearly lost to C.J. Stroud. And it just makes sense to me that he probably didn't get a guarantee of starting at Florida, but if he felt like he had a pretty good shot, it would make more sense to me that he transferred to Florida if he felt like he had a good shot. Whereas I feel like if he wanted to go somewhere where he had a guarantee of starting, he could have gone to USF. I'll throw their name out there, whatever. I think he probably wanted to go somewhere where he had a good chance of starting. And so it would make sense to me that he actually would win this job.
I think that's kind of what Billy Napier, Florida's coach, said. He's Jack kind of comes across as a guy that's been in competition before. He's played in games before. He doesn't come across like this is too big for him. He's comfortable with it. He's been around other really talented guys. They said the ball comes out of his hand really well. He's got arm talent. He's accurate. He's picking things up pretty quick. I think we made a good decision. We're glad Jack's on our team. That means something. That really does, especially early on. He didn't have to say that. Jack Miller's not transferring out this year again, So you don't have to say that, and yet you still did. I think it kind of shows maybe where Napier's head's at, and maybe he does want kind of a calming presence on his team, and maybe he feels that Jack Miller is that. For him, someone that comes across. It's not too big for me. I'm not going to get rattled, because Richardson did get rattled last year.
Sure.
Like, I don't know if you remember the Georgia game, but
Yeah.
like that game went from 3-0 to 24-0 very, very quick in like 2 minutes.
Yes.
And it was just turnovers. It was turnovers. They weren't really his fault, but he got a little loose. Like they were his fault. Like because he got a little bit loose. It just, and it wasn't. Yeah, I don't know how much blame you can put on him because he was a true freshman trying to carry the load against the best defense we've ever seen. But the wheels kind of came off the bus for him, and maybe Jack Miller doesn't make those mistakes. Like maybe he's able to kind of circle the wagons and like, okay, we're just going to get to halftime down 10-0. Like let's just get to halftime. And maybe that's where like a coach like Napier sees some value in Miller being maybe a little bit more experienced and yeah, it's not too big for him. Maybe that's what he's thinking.
I do think that with Richardson, it kind of feels like he'll either be second team All SEC or he'll be starting for FAU next year.
Yeah.
And with Jack Miller, it might feel a little more stable.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, let's see. There's a few more we should maybe talk about. Notre Dame, actually. So there is a legitimate battle there. Tyler Buckner and Drew Pine both played a fair amount last year. Buckner a little more. Pine actually played pretty big minutes against both Wisconsin and Cincinnati, arguably the two best teams on Notre Dame's schedule last year. And you could argue he looked like the best quarterback on the roster in those two games. He kind of broke it open with some big-time plays against Wisconsin in the fourth quarter. And he also, like, there were people after that Cincinnati game thinking that if Pine had played the whole game, they might have won just because he looked pretty good against Cincinnati. But then he kind of, like, Notre Dame, it seemed like they sort of decided, okay, we have to go with two guys instead of three. And Pine was sort of the odd man out the rest of the year. Buckner is, I mean, the betting favorite. Everyone thinks it's probably going to be his job. Do you have a read on this as kind of the outside perspective, as maybe someone who saw both of them play a little bit last year?
I saw both play a little bit, and I actually remember being just kind of impressed with Drew Pine.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't maybe understand why he didn't get as much run as, Cohn or Buckner did. Like, Cohn and Buckner were the favorites, it felt like. And then Cohn was kind of like the oddball a little bit, and the coaching staff didn't care to have him play too much, even though I felt that when he did play, he was pretty good. But, like, where the coaches are at means something. And, having Buckner as being kind of the coach's choice that's meaningful, and it feels like he's kind of the future, and that's kind of like where they're pushing towards. So for me, it would feel like it's almost a slam dunk for Buckner. Like if you went with Buckner last year and let him play meaningful snaps last year, then you surely will this year. Like that's maybe where my point.
Yeah, I think more the reason that Buckner got as much playing time as he did last year was because he had a completely different skill set than Jack Cohn, who was, the statue in the pocket. And we know what Notre Dame's offensive line was like last year. And the only way they could really run the ball was when Buckner came in the game and totally opened it up with a little read option, which I think might be a reason that he wins this job. Like, I think this might be a situation where maybe they're comparable throwing the ball, but Buckner has that extra, he's got that extra juice in the running game. But I do think that he's going to have to throw the ball well to win this job, because I think Pine, we saw it last year some, like he's got a little moxie. all of those weird words that people like to use for quarterbacks, got just a little bit of Baker Mayfield in him. Like, just that type of, he goes out there a bit of a gunslinger, likes to run around a little bit and got a little gamer in him. Like, that's kind of Drew Pine. And so I do think, like, if Buckner does not perform, they feel pretty good that they have a solid option in Pine, even if he's not going to, most likely set the world on fire. Like, if you told me one of these guys is going to be a third-team All-American, I know which one that was. Like, that was Buckner, and it worked out perfectly.
Right.
If one of them, goes for 24 touchdowns to 8 interceptions and throws for 3,000 yards and, is pretty good in a 10-2 type of season, that could be either one. But I think the point is you feel decent about Pine if he wins the job, but that there's a bit of a ceiling on that most likely. Like, I think if Notre Dame needs to reach their ceiling, if they want to reach their ceiling, it's going to have to be Buckner.
No, agreed. I think that's kind of maybe a classic example of just, again, of coaches trying to find that that high ceiling, and maybe that's
Yeah.
kind of where that's what it felt like, at least from an outside perspective, is that we would like this guy because he does have the higher ceiling. We're going to kind of push him forward just a little bit more.
I do think
anyone. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, similarly to Michigan, I don't think this is a job that gets announced. Like, the winner is not announced until this fall, guaranteed. Like, just because you want to make sure both of these guys stay on the team. You don't want Drew Pine transferring this summer. So, like, I don't think we're going to hear anything definitive on this until August.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Okay, so go through my list here. There's just maybe 2 or 3 more. 4 more, maybe. Okay, Washington, Dylan Morse, Sam Heward, Michael Penix Jr. Any idea on this one? Sam Heward is the former 5-star redshirt freshman. Dylan Morse is the returning starter, and Michael Penix is the transfer from Indiana.
Yeah, I have no idea. Like I assumed it's Heward, but like I don't know. Like I could not tell you. Heward is not just a 5-star. He was like one of the top. I think he was the 3rd quarterback in his class.
Mm-hmm.
That one, like he would seem to be the favorite. Like if I had to, but again, I know nothing.
I will say this: like I do think that Kalen DeBoer, known for his offensive prowess, like I do think that Washington's offense is taking a big step up this year, regardless of the quarterback. It almost doesn't matter. Like put any one of these 3 in there, and their offense is going to be a whole lot better than it was last year when they were scoring 7 points against Montana or whatever. North Carolina. So Sam Howell leaves. Drake May is kind of the big name, but there's also some talk about Jacoby Criswell. Do you know anything about these guys? Who do you expect to win this job?
Drake May. That was just kind of the reason. I know nothing about. Is it Criswell? Like literally no things about him. So like some of those jobs are hard to know, especially like when they're not in the national eye. You know what I mean? Like Howell was the guy. You know, there was no competition. Like Howell was the dude.
Right.
And when the dude leaves and you don't have like just another guy waiting, like if you're not Ohio State and Clemson and Alabama, like you kind of have to scratch and claw a little bit for your next quarterback. And like that feels maybe like where we're at, like with North Carolina this year. And so I'm assuming it's Drake May, but wouldn't know. Yeah.
He was very highly touted. And if everything goes, I would say probably according to plan, you'd have to imagine it's Drake May. If it's Jacoby Criswell, my reading on that would be probably May is, it was a missed evaluation or something.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
Ole Miss. So Jackson Dart they brought in from USC, who was a true freshman a year ago. And Luke Altmaier was the true freshman a year ago who played in the bowl game when the starter went down with an injury, Matt Corral, and looked not bad, a little bit toolsy. Is this overthinking it to even write this down as a competition?
Yeah, I think it's maybe I don't believe it's much of a competition. I think Jackson Dart walks away with this one. I know they're right now, like they just had their first week of spring practice. Altmaier and Dart are splitting snaps. I understand that they're splitting snaps with the first team. For me, Jackson Dart walks away with this one. I don't think that it will end up being a pronounced or long quarterback battle. I think this one will be over soon.
Yeah, I think the way that Lane Kiffin was so hard going after quarterbacks in the portal, like I don't think he probably has just a world of confidence in what he had with Luke Altmaier. Like I do think you bring in a Jackson Dart to start the guy. Like that's what.
Correct.
Okay, I had one more written down, I believe, and that is Baylor. So Jerry Bohannon was the starter pretty much all last year.
Yep.
And then I think it was it just in their bowl game that Blake Shapen played? I can't remember exactly, but looked pretty good. Any reason to think that maybe he wins this job over Bohannon, who was solid but unspectacular a year ago?
I don't know. Like that one's one that's really I don't know. I'm not sure. Like I think isn't Jacob Zeno still there? Is that right?
I don't know.
Remember, we talked about him quite a bit. I don't know if he's still there or not, but like he was there. I do remember Shapen getting some meaningful snaps towards the end there. But yeah,
Yeah. Is it fair to say maybe that Baylor, as currently constructed, might be one of those teams where it doesn't really matter that much who their quarterback is?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, they might be my Big 12 favorite for this coming season. Like, and
yeah.
they just want it, so why not,
Right,
right? But
right.
I
Sure.
really like the job that he's done there, and yeah, like I don't think it's like I think they'll have solid quarterback play this year, regardless.
Yeah, how could you not like the job that he did there? I thought overall that was
Yeah.
just an incredible coaching job from Dave Aranda.
Yep.
And maybe it doesn't really matter. Like so our official stance as a podcast is we don't really care who's the quarterback there.
Yeah.
They'll be good anyway.
They'll be good. Exactly. Okay, so I just wanted to get your opinion as a Georgia fan. JT Daniels. Where do you think JT Daniels will go, and why not Auburn?
He's going to go to Oregon State. Yeah. JT is going to Oregon State. He's visited several times. He feels at home there. To JT, like, I'm sorry that it didn't work out for you. I stood up for you. I went to war faithfully for you on Twitter daily.
Yeah.
Like at times during this past season. And I will cling to the fact that Georgia would have absolutely still won a national title with JT Daniels, and we would view him so much differently if that was the case.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it was maybe a little unfortunate what happened to him. It's hard to know exactly what happened there. He was clearly the better passer. Clearly, that part wasn't. Yeah, we don't want to get into that. We've argued about this many times. He's a very, very good thrower of the football. I hope he finds success wherever he goes. And I actually think that he will. I really do think that he will.
I do think that Oregon State would be a really good spot for him. Jonathan Smith, pretty good offensive mind, I would say. And, if you take Oregon State to a 6-6 season, and you have good numbers doing it, then we'll see him in the next year's draft. He'll be in that third round probably or something like that, I would imagine.
Sure.
Okay, so any reason to think, maybe you've heard whispers, I don't know. Any reason, and I have to ask, is it Stetson Bennett start to finish next year, or is anybody else going to have some playing time? Or
Yes, the correct answer is yes. It is Stetson Bennett. It always will be Stetson Bennett. He'll be playing there years from now. He will still be playing there. It's shocking that he's still allowed to play. Like, how is he still eligible? But he is. Yep, it's like he's 7th year or whatever, 6th, 7th year. He's still around, milking just every year that he can. I will say Carson Beck. That's a name that no one talked about much. He is playing really, really well in spring practice right now. He could legitimately give him a run for his money. I think people expected either Vandegrift or Gunnar Stockton kind of be the guys that try to unseat him. Currently, it looks like Carson Beck is having a really good spring so far. These are just things just to keep in mind. I think they're just interesting tidbits just to throw out there. Carson Beck getting a lot of reps early on in the spring for UGA.
Okay. All right. So, anything else we should talk about with any other quarterback battles that we missed, or anything else in spring that you're kind of keeping an eye on?
No, I think that was the main thing. The Clemson quarterback battle is huge. That one's mammoth. I believe the Michigan quarterback battle is huge. We'll get there's some other like position battles that we just talked about only quarterbacks today. There's some other position battles, but I think that's interesting. I think it's really, really fun just kind of going through it all.
Sure. Okay, just checking Twitter. Anything else that we should talk about before we wrap this up? Have you seen anything?
No, I think we're good. It seems like every time we're just about to get off one, off a pod, yes. Like we check and there's some breaking news.
Brian Kelly is going to LSU.
Yeah, that did happen. Right now, it's kind of a dead period as far as news. You know what I mean? Like there isn't really any big time news going on. So this is just the time to get your, make sure you involve the families in your Saturdays. That way you built up enough goodwill that you can just completely blow everything off later in the fall. Yeah,
Absolutely.
don't schedule weddings in the fall. Please don't do that. Friends
Yeah.
don't let friends get married in the fall. Um, so yeah, no, that's the talk. That's all we've got right now. It's kind of a light, more of a feel good time in college football. Everyone's undefeated right now, So it's just a time to it's a good time to feel good about your team.
That's right. So just out of curiosity, like how much access do Georgia reporters get to spring practice?
None, like almost. I think, yeah. Kirby does not let anyone go anywhere near practice. I think a couple of guys got in for like 20 minutes
Oh yeah.
earlier, like last week, and that's kind of where they saw the Carson Beck stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he keeps that thing locked down. So it's I there's media that aren't happy about it, but
Yeah.
I think that's something he learned. Kirby probably learned it from Saban, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's they practice indoor, so like you can't get drones or anything. Like there's just
Right.
no way to know. So satellite imaging, yeah, doesn't help you when you're inside. So that's kind of just where we're at right now. It's frustrating. I don't think anyone really likes it. Like, why can't we watch practice?
Yeah. I do think that is fairly common. Just
It
last
is. It
Saturday,
is. Yeah, it is.
the Notre Dame reporters got their only full practice of the spring. And so,
Well,
like, you take everything you can out of this one practice, knowing full well that, the other 14 practices are probably completely different.
mhm.
But we are starved college football fans, so we will grasp for every little bit of news that we can get.
Correct.
Man. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, why don't we wrap this one up? It's been good. Yeah, thanks everybody for listening. Have a great week and God bless.